Welcome and thank you for joining us for this information session on serving in local office in Mandan and Morton County. I'm Lori Leingang and I currently serve as chair of the Mandan Tomorrow Leadership Pride and Image Committee. To give you some background about the Leadership Pride and Image Committee, about 3 years ago, the Bismarck-Mandan Chamber, the City of Mandan, Mandan School District, and Mandan Park District partnered to coordinate a visioning process to gain a clear picture of what the people of Mandan wanted its community to be and what direction of focus there should be in planning Mandan's future. A national community and economic development firm named Market Street provided their services to lead a steering committee of a variety of citizens through the process. Market Street provided an economic and demographic analysis of Mandan and gathered a community assessment of citizens' perspectives through a number of citizen interviews and a comprehensive community-wide survey. From the outcome of that data, a strategic vision plan was developed, geared toward addressing identified challenges and capitalizing on our strengths and opportunities for growth. The community's vision plan now goes by the name Mandan Tomorrow. There are now approximately 35 citizens in our community who volunteer on 4 Mandan Tomorrow working committees. These committees are working on specific goal areas of the plan. In fact, last evening we were here. The Mandan Tomorrow committees provided a public presentation on the 2011 achievements and the 2012 goals. You can view broadcast replays of that presentation on Dakota Media Access Government Channel 2, or you can view it online through their website, which is www.freetv.org. The Mandan Tomorrow Committee, named Leadership, Pride, and Image, organized this evening's information session because one of our goals is to encourage citizens' participation in public leadership roles. Citizen input given through the strategic visioning process indicated the general desire for consistent qualities of forward-thinking public leadership. Effective leadership is critical to building strong communities, and they are often the people who represent the general feeling within our community, as well as the perception of people outside of our community. It's important that our public representatives are visionary and see the big picture, that they work effectively with other community boards and commissions, forming a coalition to solve bigger issues than personal agendas. We depend on them to be a good listener, who is connected to the community, sees a problem, and can engage others in addressing that problem as a community. Our goal this evening is to provide an educational format for citizens to learn more about the roles, responsibilities, and expectations of those who serve on local commissions and boards, along with the requirements to seek candidacy for a number of Mandan and Morton County seats slated for election on June 12, 2012. I'd like to thank the current board and commission members here tonight to inform you about their roles and responsibilities. Our speakers are Mandan's Mayor, Tim Helbling, Mandan School District Board President Kirsten Baszler, Mandan Park Board Vice President Jason Ahrens, and Morton County Commission Vice Chairman Andy Zachmeyer. These representatives also depend highly on the expertise of their professional staff. City Administrator Jim Neubauer, School Superintendent Wilfred Valesky, Director of Parks and Recreation Cole Higlin, and Morton County Auditor Don Rohn are also present to answer questions and to visit with the audience here tonight as we close the evening with our breakout session. After we hear from each of the board and commission representatives, we'll give you an overview of the process and required documents to seek candidacy on the June 12th election ballot. Joining us for tonight's program are some of the members of the Leadership, Pride, and Image Committee, Christy Ense, Pam Mack, Jason Steffenhagen, and Kelly Steckler. Our program moderator is President of the Bismarck-Mandan Chamber of Commerce, Kelvin Hullett. And with that, I'll turn it over to Calvin. Thank you for being with us here tonight, Calvin.
Thank you, Lori, very much for that introduction and that information, and welcome. Thank you to all that have come this evening, and thanks for all that are at home watching on TV. You know, local leadership is very important. They always say that the government that is the best is that which is closest to the voters. And without question, I think when you hear tonight from these folks, being a local elected official is not only a challenge, but also very rewarding. This year, we have asked the members of the Leadership, Pride, and Image Committee to actually work with us, and instead of having our elected officials go through a long list of what it is they do, we've outlined a list of duties that we see the local elected officials doing. We're going to go through that with our folks from our Leadership, Pride, and Image Committee, and then turn to our elected officials to really get into what it is they do as an elected official. So our first person here tonight from the Leadership, Pride, and Image Committee is Christy Ince, and she is going to be talking about the Mandan City Commission and Mayor.
Good evening. I'm Christy Enzi, and tonight I will be giving you some general information about the Mandan City Commission. The Mandan City Commission is comprised of 5 members, the mayor, and 4 commissioners. Each are elected to serve a 4-year term. Slated for election on the June 12, 2012 election will be the mayor's seat, currently held by Tim Helbling, and 2 commissioner seats currently held by Tom Jackson and Sandra Tibke. In addition, the 4-year position of municipal judge, currently held by Danae Kautzman, will be up for election. City Commission meetings are held at the Mandan City Hall on the 1st and 3rd Tuesdays of each month at 5:30 p.m. The meetings are televised on Dakota Media Access Government Channel 2. The city administrator is the Commission's direct staff resource and liaison. All city employees are available to assist the Commission as necessary. The city administrator prepares the meeting agenda, and agenda packets are delivered by staff to the commissioners the Friday prior to Tuesday's meeting. Information is also posted to the city website the Friday afternoon prior to the commission meeting. The commission is responsible for setting policy, and staff is responsible for carrying out that policy. The City of Mandan has adopted a leadership code for city commissioners, which may be found on the city's website at www.cityofmandan.com. There are several opportunities for commissioners to serve on committees, such as the City Planning and Zoning Commission, which meets the 4th Monday of the month at 5:15, and the County Planning and Zoning Commission, which meets on Thursday evenings. Most other committees meet during the day, and in general, commissioners serve as liaisons along with the staff as non-voting members. After elections, the mayor will make suggested portfolio assignments, which are up for discussion amongst the commissioners. There are 21 department portfolios, and I will briefly list them for you. Police, fire, public buildings, cemetery, health inspection, business development and communication, Morton Mandan Public Library, assessing, building inspection, municipal court, planning and zoning, engineering, water and sewer treatment, streets, forestry, water line and sewer line maintenance, solid waste utility, street light utility, parking authority, finance, and finally airport authority. As far as compensation, the mayor receives an annual salary of $10,500 and commissioners are paid $7,000 annually. Fees, room and board are reimbursed for applicable conferences attended. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christy. First, I want to introduce tonight Mayor Tim Helbling. Mayor Helbling has been on the commission for quite some time. He's currently finishing out his tenure as mayor, and has told us that he's not going to run again, even though we've had numerous conversations about maybe doing that again. But we do want to thank him for his service to the city of Mandan. I have had the pleasure of working with Mayor Helbling since my arrival here about almost 9 years ago now, which seems very hard to believe. And we've shared more than a few wimpy burgers together, and he has done a tremendous job for the city. So, Mayor, if you would share a few thoughts with us.
Okay. First off, I'd like to thank the Chamber and the Mandan Tomorrow Committee. I think it just proves that the quality of the people that we have here, it's amazing. We had a Mandan Tomorrow outline their goals and accomplishments for 2011 and their goals for 2012 last night. And it's just amazing the number of people who really want to make a difference in the community and a positive difference. So I'd like to thank you both for all that you do and also all the members of the committee. Do you want me to go through the list a little bit, or, okay? Describe your normal duties in a typical month. There's really no normal days. Every day it changes. For today, for instance, from 7 to 7:30, I answered emails. Then I got a little bit of work done. Then from 10:30 to 11, I met with a citizen on some concerns he had with the city. At 3 o'clock, we met on a big project, paving project in town, with a couple of the engineering firms and the city administrator. At 5 o'clock, we had a meeting in the other room, and at 7, I'm here now. So a typical day, that there isn't a typical day. One day you can spend, as little as an hour as the job of mayor, and the next day you can spend 12. Generally, I get between 10 to 20 emails a day that I have to answer. The email really saves a lot of time. One great thing about being the mayor of Mandan is we got a great staff. I mean, we got really good support staff. Our city administrator is great. We've got our business development director, our finance people, everybody within the city of Mandan. They're really great to work with. And another thing that makes it easy is the guy sitting next to me, the county commission. We have a really good relationship with the county commissioners. We're open, we talk. The school district, the park district, everybody's willing to talk and share their thoughts and ideas, and I think that makes everything go so much easier. 10 years ago, you didn't really see that. We didn't see the interaction between, especially the city and the county. It was pretty much stick to your own things, and I think that's made it a lot easier. Like I said, the time commitment, it's what you want it to be. I'm very fortunate in my job. It's flexible. I can do whatever I want, whenever I want, and that makes it easy on me. That doesn't mean that the next mayor has to do that. Describe your involvement and the manner in which you interact with the staff. I talk with the staff constantly, email, talk on the phone. Generally, the board sets the policy, and the staff carries out that policy. I have a tendency to micromanage. I like having my hands in everything and probably get in the way a lot of times, but in a lot of ways, I think it backs up the staff in some instances too. But there again, the staff is great. What role do commissioners or board members play in working with the staff to ensure policies are executed as approved? We all have portfolios. I have police and fire in public buildings, so I meet with the police chief, the fire chief, and anybody associated with the public buildings. We meet a couple times a month. I mean, we call each other, email each other constantly. So the interaction with the staff, again, is as much as you want to make it. You can just come to the meetings if you want and interact that way. But I think most of the commissioners are fairly active in working with the staff. How much time is typically spent on public interaction? And describe experiences with the public interaction, positive and negative. Again, I'm again fortunate. I take phone calls, emails any time of the day or night. I try to answer them as quickly as possible. I try to not let anything go over 24 hours if at all possible. My public interaction, I can count on one hand at the people that I can really say have gotten mad at me, and I can't even fill that hand. That's how well the people in this community are. That most people want to see things succeed. We may disagree to some extent, but some of the people that have disagreed with me the most have become my closer friends. So it's amazing how people can turn, and once you interact with them, how they become your friends, and you can work together to get things accomplished. To the negative aspect of it, there's some people that can tend to nag on a guy. I mean, every situation you're in, they know the better answer than the staff does or anybody else, and you just have to deal with it. And I think that's one of the reasons I'm probably not running for mayor, is I'm kind of getting frustrated with it, and I'm tending not to listen as much as I should. I'm more want to tell people what I think instead of opening my ears, and I think the best thing you can do in any of these boards is listen to people. Open your ears and listen to what people say. Just because they disagree with you or your opinion isn't the same as theirs doesn't mean that they're wrong. A lot of times they're right. So to make yourself better and your community better, you need to listen. What's been the most rewarding aspect of your public position? The interaction with the people. Like I say, I can't say enough about the people of Mandan and the people that are on all the boards in Mandan, because it's been really good. I mean, it's been very rewarding. The people that you meet, it's just awesome, and the flood event is just a perfect example of that. The people that we have mad at us is just minimal. The way things clicked in our community versus what I've seen in other places, the same within the county, everything just seemed to click. We talked together, we knew what was going on, we shared with one another our experiences, we shared our people where we could share them, and it's just been a really, really good experience. So the people are what makes Mandan what it is. The events are what makes Mandan what it is. So we're very lucky in that way. What's the biggest challenge you've ever faced? I'm going to bring up the flood again. And I'm not going to talk about the flood. The biggest challenge I faced was keeping the other commissioners in check, as well as our staff, to make sure people were telling the right story at the right time and explaining what the city was doing. It was chaos. All the commissioners were trying to do the right thing. There was nobody trying to do the wrong thing, but to try to keep everybody focused so that we were all telling the same story and making sure that we were covering our bases with the Corps and FEMA and the media. That was probably the biggest challenge of anything I've done. The diesel fuel was a piece of cake compared to that. That was some of the most frustrating times, is dealing with the other members of the commission and some of the staff to make sure that everybody was going in the proper direction. What are the lessons learned? Listen. Again, that's the most important thing you can do is listen. Describe your election campaign techniques, time commitment, and cost. The last time I ran, I think I spent a whopping $84 on an ad in the local paper. I didn't do much campaigning, but I don't know that I'm probably in a different position, being that I've held several board posts before, but just be who you are. Don't try to be somebody you aren't. You don't have to dress up in a suit if you don't normally do that. If you are somebody who dresses up in a suit, that's fine too. But go out and be who you are. You don't have to change to try to fit the position. You should just do it naturally. Take the time. The first couple times I ran, I think I visited every door in the community, went and knocked on every door and tried to meet as many people as I could when I ran for the park board. But cost, you don't need fancy billboards. You don't need fancy ads in the paper. Like I said, just be who you are and try to meet as many people as you can, and just be yourself. Do you have any advice for future commissioners or board members? Again, I think it just falls into the last one. Just be who you are. Do your best. You may not please everybody all of the time, but just try to treat them with respect and listen to them. And other than that, like I said, it's been a very rewarding experience for me. I would do it again in a heartbeat, but I did make a promise to my wife that I wouldn't do it again. And that's another thing. If you're thinking about running, you have children, you have a spouse, make sure you clear it with them first. Make sure it's okay with them to get phone calls, to be out in public and be at a restaurant having a quiet dinner. Somebody always knows you. Somebody always wants to come and talk to you. Some spouses don't care for that. Make sure, if you're going to run for any of these positions, that your spouse and your children are okay with it, because it does take time, and it does interfere with not only your life, that's your choice, but it interferes with your family's life. So be sure everybody's okay with that. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Tim, and thank you for your leadership over the past 4 years and throughout your career. You've made a tremendous impact on the city of Mandan and our community, and our organization is very grateful for all the leadership we provided, in particular this last year with the flood. That was a challenge. It showed the collaborative nature of the community, and I think you are very well in taking some credit for all of the cooperation and how well that was handled. So thank you for that.
Can I just comment on one other thing? Another thing that was important is the relationship that we have with Bismarck. I mean, we tend to feud a little bit, and that's great. I mean, you got to keep some of that rivalry going. But Warford and the other city commissioners over there have been great in the communications. And if one of us had a problem or needed an answer to something, they were very open to that. So don't be scared to call on people on the other side of the river or anybody on another board for advice, because they're more than willing to help you out.
Thank you, and I'm sure for the next mayor, when they take over, there's a drawer up here, there'll be a little note in it when they pull it out that will say, "Don't mess it up." So thank you. Next, we want to move over to our Mandan Public Schools, and Kelly Steckler is here, and she's going to do an introduction of the duties of a school board member.
Good evening. The Mandan School Board is comprised of 9 members who are each elected to serve a 3-year term. One of the 9 is required to be a rural representative who resides outside of city limits within the school district's jurisdiction. Slated for election on June 12th, 2012 are 2 at-large seats currently held by Jill Lamont Hansen and Tim Townsend. In addition, the rural seat currently held by Beth Allen will be up for election. The mission statement of the school district is empowering every student to lead a productive life and positively contribute to society. School board meetings are held at Mandan City Hall on the first and third Mondays of each month at 5:30 p.m. The meetings are televised on Dakota Media Access Government Channel 2, and special meetings are scheduled as necessary. The superintendent, assistant superintendent, business manager, and the superintendent's administrative assistant are staff resources for the board. The superintendent and board president prepare the meeting agenda and sends it electronically to board members on the Thursday prior to Monday's meeting. The information is also posted on the school district website at that time. The school board also sets policies for management of the district that the superintendent and district staff then carry out. The school board approves the budget, establishes goals and priorities, acquires and disposes of property, serves as a link between the school system and the public, and interprets educational needs and concerns of the community. Board members serve on various district and non-district committees. The 5 school district standing committees are Personnel, Finance, Curriculum, Facility Needs and Utilization, and Extracurricular Programs. Board members are paid an annual salary of $2,400. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kelly. And next, we'd like to turn to Kirsten Baszler. She is currently the president of the School Board of Mandan Public Schools. Kirsten.
Thank you, Kelvin. And thank you, too, also to the Mandan Tomorrow Leadership Pride and Image Committee. We do appreciate this opportunity, and thank you very much for encouraging others to get involved in the community. Duties of a school board member, in particular, I'm the president of the Mandan School Board, and so as a mayor's duties differ somewhat from commissioners, a school board president's duties are going to differ from the school board members. I would agree with Mayor Helbling wholeheartedly on most definitely the first 2 questions. Describe your normal duties a typical month, and what is the time commitment? Normal duties a typical month, there really is no normal month. And there is no normal year. We were at a meeting this afternoon at about 4 o'clock, and we were talking about some transitions that'll be taking place in this school district, and realizing that we've really never had a calm, non-eventful year. There's always been one thing to handle and deal with, and then that's probably a sign of progress, a sign of movement, and which is a good thing. But the normal duties a month, the school board, as Kelly mentioned, meets twice a month, and we meet on Monday evenings. Our meetings start at 5:30, and we meet here. Our meetings typically last about 2 hours, from 5:30 till 7:30, and then each board member is required to sit on a standing committee, which Kelly also outlined. In addition to those standing committees, which meet monthly, most of them meet at least monthly. The finance and during different times of the year can meet more than once a month. But in addition to those 5 standing committees, each school board member is assigned to additional auxiliary committees of those standing committees, as well as various community Bismarck Mandan committees, and various other educational committees. So the time commitment is, again, what you make of it. I think Mayor Hilblin summed that up very well. You could devote as much as 1 to 2 hours per week for your meetings and for going through the materials you need to, or you can devote as much as 10, 15, 20 hours each and every week, researching, finding out, delving into what your issues are. The school district is a multifaceted organization, and there's a lot to learn about it. So you could spend, theoretically more than 20 hours a week even. Describe your involvement and the manner in which you interact with staff. Most of our interaction with staff does come through these committees that we work with, the committee work that we do. The 5 standing committees each have certified staff, classified staff, and administrative staff on each of those, as well as community members. So the school board members all interact with staff in that way, in a teamwork environment, as we work to solving our curriculum issues, developing our curriculum, our extracurricular ideas, our facility needs and development, personnel issues, and our finances. All of those committees have our staff involved with them. What role do commissioners or board members play in working with staff to assure policies are executed as approved? So leading into that question, I want to make a clear delineation between the involvement with staff and what our working role is. We work with staff in order to come up with ideas, but the school board has 2 employees that they directly hire and supervise. Those 2 employees are the superintendent of our schools, who is now Mr. Wilfred Bileski, and our school business manager, Mr. Joe Lukacs. Those are the only 2 employees that we hire and evaluate. That being said, we create policy and we work through those 2 individuals in order to ensure that our policies that we have passed, that we have adopted and approved, get executed as they were intended to be. From there, it's up to our organizational structure to have those policies executed. And so we do approve all of our certified staff positions, but those are also based on the recommendations of the staff that we've hired. And I think that's a really important thing for school board members to remember if they're running, is that you are going to have interaction. You are going to have the interaction with the community, and I'll get to that in a moment as we move down the list. But it is important for us to remember that you've hired these people to do their jobs, and you need to, they will be on the right seat on the bus, and you need to let them do their work. Your policies can make it easier for them, the people that you've hired, to do that work. And another important thing is that when you are on a board, the decisions that you make as a board member are the decisions of the board, and you only have the power and the authority as you are seated as a board member and voting on the decisions that you make. So how much time is typically spent on public interaction? Describe experiences with public interaction, both positive and negative. Again, I do know that the school board president receives more inquiries because we are the spokesperson for the board. So most of the formal questions and formal inquiries from the public come to the school board president, and he or she answers those inquiries. So I receive probably both formal and informal 10 to 15 inquiries a week, and those may be in emails or phone calls or people on the street. From visiting with my colleagues, I would say that they probably get most of theirs through incidental visits at a game, out at the grocery store, as they're going to church, or just visiting in their circles. Positive and negative. Again, I think Mayor Helbling said it well. Most of mine have been extremely, extremely positive. When you work to make changes through policy to improve the learning environment at a high school, and you get a note from a mother that has worked with you and has waited and worked with you through the process, that's extremely rewarding. That's very positive. But it is difficult when you seem to answer some people's questions, and there's not very many of them, but it gets to be a bit wearing, and you feel you have to really check yourself so you don't become negative and pessimistic about it, realizing that you have to say the same answer over and over again until they understand it, not until you don't feel like saying it anymore. Communication is when one person says and another person understands. So remembering that and striving to achieve that is important. What has been the most rewarding aspect of your public position? I would say, hands down, graduation day every May. When you wonder, as you go through the year, why you're spending night after night and weekend after weekend researching and reading the information, it all comes crystal clear when you're sitting on that stage and 250-plus graduates walk across that stage, and thousands of families and friends in the audience. And they've succeeded, and they've accomplished what they set out as kindergarten kids with their, little Ninja Warrior lunchboxes, head off to school. That is truly the most rewarding experience of my position on the school board. You realize that you've been part of something very, very, very good, not only for our community, but for our state and our country. What has been the biggest challenge you've faced? Publicly wise, probably overcoming the misinformation, constantly trying to communicate the accurate information, the good information. That's been a challenge. And my first 2 years on the board, I was elected to the board in 2005, so this is my 7th term on the school board. And when I first was elected, the relationship between the biggest players in an education system, the administrators, the school board, and the staff, was not very good. And that was the biggest challenge, but again, probably my biggest reward, because I think that our staff now feels that we are looked at in the state of North Dakota as probably having one of the best working relationships in public education. So that was a challenge which I think we overcame, and we rose to that challenge, and again, it speaks to what wonderful, dedicated, committed people we have in Mandan on both sides. What lessons have you learned? When an issue is over, it's over. You've made the best decision with the information that you had at that time, and you may make another different decision as you receive more information, but you have to make a decision, and when the decision is made, you need to agree to make it, and then move forward and work together to make that a workable situation. And I've also learned that along that same line, what is best for one or two people is not always best for the greatest number of people. And keeping in mind that our public education system exists for the sole purpose of our students, that has to be your guiding factor. And when you make a decision based on that, then you have to move forward, and you do make the best decision you can for the greatest number of people. Describe election campaign techniques, time commitment, and cost. When I first ran in 2005, I bought palm cards, and I did spend probably $200 to $300 on those palm cards, and I went door to door, and I went to every neighborhood in the city of Mandan and knocked on as many doors as I could. So that was a time commitment and a monetary commitment. I would say probably the biggest thing that helps is beneficial to candidates running is answering those questions that the media. The Mandan News does it, the League of Women Voters asks you those questions, the Bismarck Tribune prints your answers. That's very helpful. If you answer those in your honest way and take some time to thoughtfully answer those questions, it really allows your voters to know who you are and what you know and what you would like to do. So cost has been minimal. If you can do that, that's free. They're asking you your opinion, and that's a free medium for you. So I would encourage that. I also did visit Kiwanis and Lions meetings and the American Legion, those types of things I would go and visit when I did that too. So that was a time commitment on lunch breaks and things like that, but not much cost. Advice for future commission or board members. Learn as much as you can. Talk to as many people as you can about every issue. You have a great staff. Mandan Public Schools has a great staff, and you can learn a lot from them, but it is your responsibility to learn about the organization that you're working with. Learn about education. Learn if you're running for the school board. Learn about park districts if you're running for the park board. Learn about what you're doing, and just get involved. I really would encourage anyone thinking about it and entertaining the idea. It's very rewarding, and you're giving back. You're paying it forward, and that's a wonderful thing. I would also say invest in a crock pot or stock in McDonald's, because you're kind of on the run a lot. So that would be mine. Thank you, Kelvin.
Thank you very much, Kirsten, and thank you for all of your service over the past couple of years. It is making a difference. I think Kirsten put a couple of good points out related to elected officials that I've heard numerous times from elected officials, and that is the best candidates are those that are running to really help the community and are not running on a single issue. So if you're thinking about running, that's something to really think about, is your motivation behind running. And the other thing I can tell you from an outside perspective, as someone who works a lot with the commissioners is, and all the elected officials, is when it's over, it's over. I mean, Tim and I have had some disagreements, but it was never personal, and when it was over, and we moved on. And so I think that is very important for people to consider as they're thinking about running for office. Next up, we'd like to talk about the Mandan Park Board, and Jason Steffenhagen is here to talk to us about the duties.
Hello. The Mandan Park Board is comprised of 5 members who are each selected to serve a 4-year term. Slated for election on June 12, 2012 are 2 seats currently held by Bruce Brooker and Wanda Canole. The mission of the Park Board is to provide recreational opportunities for all ages and abilities for the citizens of Mandan and its visitors. The Park Board meetings are held at Mandan City Hall on the 2nd Monday of each month at 5:30 p.m. The meetings will be televised on Dakota Media Access Government Channel 2. Special meetings are scheduled as necessary. The Director of Park and Recreation is the Board's direct staff resource. The Director prepares a meeting agenda and delivers it electronically to board members on the Friday prior to Monday's meeting. The Park Board's Commissioners' responsibilities are policymaking, long-term planning, fiduciary responsibility, liability risk management, intergovernmental relations, and public relations. Each Commissioner will also have a role of holding a Park District Department portfolio. They are encouraged to have dialogue and regular meetings with the respective department managers and staff. The 5 department portfolios and the various committees are the Administration Department, the Golf Department, the Park and Rec Facilities Department, Ragin' Rivers and Ragin' Fitness, and the Recreation Department. Commissioners are paid an annual salary of $1,200 and receive free use of Park District facilities and programs for immediate family members.
All right, thank you very much. And next, we're going to turn to Jason Arnaz, who is the Vice President of the Mandan Park Board. And Jason, before you begin, I just want to know if you and Cole Higlin are both going to be doing the Gladiator Rush this summer, or if just one of you is participating.
I think Cole is.
Good, Cole. We'll be looking forward to that.
Too out of shape for that. Anyways, lots of thank yous out there. I know the others have said it, but the Chamber, the Mandan Tomorrow Committee, and everybody involved, thank you for this time. This is a good learning time for the individuals that are interested in serving on some of these local boards. And, I guess just to start off, I could almost say ditto on everything, and I could really keep my 10 minutes to 2 minutes. But a lot of it really is similar as far as maybe not time commitment so much. When I look at the city commissioners, the school board, the county commissioners, and Mayor Helbling, of course, when you look back over the last few years, what a couple of years. I would not want to be on those boards. I'm going to be honest with you. Dealing with the remediation, the flooding. We went through the flooding this last year, and my hats goes off to everybody involved on that on the city side. The communication I thought was good, and this just, from my perspective looking in, and it was awesome. And I think from talking with most of my friends and stuff that they feel the same way, and I think we should be proud of the city in which we live and how they responded to such a kind of a terrible event. But when you look at it, I think we did a pretty good job. So my hat's off to all you guys that were involved on that, the city and the county and Mayor Helbling and stuff. School board, my dad was on the school board for 1 term. He was the rural seat, and I'll tell you what, he's retired, but he said that was probably the hardest thing he's done in a while. He goes, nobody really likes you. And he didn't want to do that anymore.
I need to share a comment with that, too. A friend of mine, Susan Weepald, who used to be the Public Service Commissioner, her husband shared with me that there's only 2 things that can make a an adult go from 0 to 50 in less than 5 seconds. Anything having to do with their children or anything having to do with their money. And on a school board, you got both.
Yeah,
So,
that's right. But he enjoyed it, and I know he always talks about the leadership that the school board had and has. And so it's always promising when you see some of these people and the leaders that we have within each of our local boards. That kind of takes us into the local, into our park district. You know, we've got Cole Higlin sitting here, probably one of the, well, probably the best in the state of North Dakota. He does such an awesome job. Very conservative, which is great for a board, which is great for the taxpayers. But yet, when you look around the city of Mandan, there's a lot of things. You see a lot of capital improvements going on around everywhere. You know, you look at, you know, I'd say that we have some of the best softball diamonds probably in the state of North Dakota. We have one of the best baseball complexes in the state of North Dakota. You know, we have the Horse and Saddle Club is doing a wonderful job, and the communication between all our user groups has improved dramatically over the last, you know, 5 to 10 years. I was just trying to think of other facilities we have here, but losing the community center, you know, those were some tough times, but really when you look back, you go, that was a good move. It was a good fit for the school board. It was a good fit for the taxpayers. Unfortunately, we had to find a new spot. I always tell people that, you know, we had our own water issues too. Ours was just raging rivers. And that kind of gets me to the biggest challenge that I faced on the park district was buying raging rivers. That was not fun. Typically, we have 1 or 2 people at our park board committee meetings every month, and we had about 100 that night, and about 50 of them were strongly against that purchase of raging rivers. But it's worked out. It's made its money. It's paid its debt, and we haven't used $1 of the taxpayers' money. So it's been I think, a pretty good purchase for the city for the park district. How much time is typically spent on public interaction, and again, that as the rest have said, that varies on a monthly basis. Sometimes it could be an hour a week, and sometimes it can be more than that. It depends on like some of the subcommittees that I'm on and that I oversee are like the baseball club and the softball club. I don't know if any of you guys know some of the members of the softball association, but they're extremely active, and it shows down there because they have a very nice facility that they take care of. So it really all depends. You can put, like I said, an hour into it, and you can put as much time as you want into it throughout the month. What's been the most rewarding aspect? Really seeing some of the projects being carried out. And this is, again, on a very limited budget for the park district. And seeing these capital improvement projects being carried out, and then at the end of the year, Cole coming up to us and telling us that our fund balance again grew from January 1 to December 31st, and that's always nice to hear. So as long as that fund balance continues to grow, right, Cole, things are looking good. So talked about the biggest challenge being, raging rivers, probably being the biggest one, but also just working on a limited budget. Lessons learned. One of the lessons I've learned just in the last year is never mess with Mike Zur. You don't want to do that. No, Mike, being the doing the superintendent of our parks and stuff, Mike does an awesome job. And if you look at all our facilities around, they're clean, and they're well taken care of. And in the user groups, I promise you that they would say that their dealings with Mike have been really good. And we all have just learned to kind of listen and see what they have to say, and then try and make the best decision from that. But Mike does a really good job. I was just kind of messing with him on TV. So, describe election campaign techniques, time, commitment, and cost. Really, you know, I think I've spent, I'm on my second term. I spend probably about $200 each time, and that's buying signs, and that's what I've utilized, is the signage for the yard signs. Usually you go through a set of them a year because they blow away in our strong winds. But really the techniques, there really isn't much techniques except to get them in the high traffic places, and obviously getting permission from whoever's land you're putting them on. Advice for future commission or board members. Kirsten kind of talked about this, but learn as much as you can. My first 4 years, I probably irritated Cole a lot because I was asking questions and trying to understand, you know, how the funds are transferring from one checkbook to the other. And it took me about 4 or 5 years just to understand all that, because you have all your other portfolios you got to do too. So just learn as much as you can, and as all these guys have talked about, is just being open and listening. That's the biggest thing. And sometimes my grandmother served on the Park District for, I don't know what it is, 16, 20 years. Maybe Mayor Helbling knows more. Or more accurate time frame, but I think my Uncle Roger was on it also. And if you know any of the errands, people were really stubborn. So sometimes I'm really closed-minded, and I know my answers, but I need to listen, and that's what I've been trying to work on over the years. And I always have friends there to give good advice, and we've got great leadership in Cole. I think some of the best staff, and that really is a result of the leadership that Cole portrays. And to bring it to the board level, I mean, you look at Wanda and Bruce, who have been on that board for longer than I have. Those two are great leaders. Ann is new. And she's learning. She's kind of in that learning stage I was 4 years ago, and doing a good job. But I tell you what, Tracy Porter is awesome. If you have a board president like Tracy and Kirsten, I mean, it makes your job as a commissioner so easy. And because they run a very good meeting, they keep basically, if there's any discussion out within the public or within our staff, he kind of stays focused on the topic, and my hat's off to Tracy, because he does a very nice job. He always, our meetings start at 5:30, and if it's 5:29, I think sometimes he just does that to make me sweat, because then I got to take over the meeting. So it's always nice to see him come. But you know, with Tracy and Cole, those are two great guys that we have on the park board and as our directors. So those two make our jobs easy, and will make anyone who's interested in running for Park District make their jobs that easier also.
All right, thank you very much, Jason. Next up, we have the Morton County Commission, and Pam Mack is here from the Leadership, Pride, and Image Committee. And I do want to take just 1 minute, because I think Pam is our last introducer from the Leadership, Pride, and Image Committee, and just also say a thank you for all of the hard work that you have done. I think when we started the Mandan Project tomorrow about 3-4 years ago, and Tim and I looked at each other and said, well, do you think this will work? It really has worked, and it is being a success and making a difference in Mandan. And the reason is because people like you are involved. So thank you very much. So Pam, talk to us about the Morton County Commission.
Good evening. The Morton County Commission is comprised of 5 members, each elected to serve a 4-year term. Slated for the primary election on June 12th of 2012 are 3 seats currently held by Mark Bitts, Bruce Strinden, and Richard Tokash. The candidates with the highest number of votes in the June primary election and who total twice the number of available positions for the office will automatically be placed on the November 6th, 2012 general election ballot. The Morton County Commission mission statement reads, "The elected and appointed officials who serve the constituents of Morton County are a dedicated group who put serving the public above all else. We are committed to maintain and strive to improve the quality of life Morton County citizens expect and desire." County Commission meetings are held at the Morton County Courthouse on the second Tuesday of each month at 4 p.m. The meetings are not currently televised. There are approximately 5 special meetings scheduled as necessary throughout the year. The county auditor is the Commission's direct staff resource and liaison. The auditor prepares the meeting agenda. Agendas are emailed to the commissioners in advance of each meeting. The Commission is the governing body responsible for oversight of county activities and working to ensure that citizens' concerns are met, federal and state requirements are fulfilled, and county operations run smoothly. The state constitution gives county commissioners the power to adopt zoning ordinances, levy taxes, appropriations, authorize bonds, set salaries, approve bills, accept bids, approve county budget, and establish the requirements and policies for the departments under its control. Portfolios are held by commissioners, some requiring meetings on a regular basis. There are currently 31 portfolios, and they are Bismarck-Mandan Development Association, Bismarck-Mandan Metropolitan Planning Organization, City Zoning, Community Action, Council on Aging and Housing, County Extension Service, County Fair Board, County Weed Board, County Zoning, Courthouse and Building Maintenance, Emergency Management, Finance and Insurance, Historical, Information Technology, Inventory and Fixed Assets, Legislation and Taxation, Lewis and Clark Regional Development Council, Mandan Progress Organization, Mental Health, Morton County Resource Board, Morton Mandan Library, Parks and Recreation, Personnel, Roads, Bridges and Gravel, Sanitation and Landfills, School Advisory Board, Sheriff and Judicial, Social Services Board, State Fair Board, Veterans Affairs, and Youth Services. Commissioners are currently paid a salary of $1,800 per month. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pam. And now we're going to turn to the Vice Chairman of the Morton County Commission, Mr. Andy Zachmeyer. Andy.
Well, thank you, Kevin, and thank you for the Leadership and Pride Committee for sponsoring tonight's event, and thank you all for being here and those watching at home. The basic duties and powers of the County Commission are contained within state law. There are 4 general duties, but there are over 20 general powers. These duties are basically financial and supervisory. The County Commission oversees the finances of the county with the assistance of the county auditor and the county treasurer. The County Commission also oversees the overall job performance of appointed department heads. Other duties of the County Commissioner would include attending monthly County Commission meetings and portfolio meetings. There is no extra pay for portfolio meeting responsibilities. Time commitments. There is no minimum mandatory time commitment for county commissioners in state law. What state law does say is that the governor can remove a county commissioner for neglect of duty and for gross incompetence. The time commitment for a commissioner also varies based on the topics or problems facing the county. Obviously, the flooding of this past year required a lot of time commitment. Commissioner Strinden had to attend many meetings as chairman of the county commission. He had to go out and do many inspections. Other county commissioners were able to assist where necessary, but Commissioner Strinden had the brunt of those responsibilities. Other controversial issues can also cause a time commitment. Such things as animal feedlots, power plants, wind turbines. that is a lot of information to study, a lot of information to do research on, and it will take a significant amount of time commitment. Basically, every disaster or every issue will have its own time commitment based on the severity of it. The time commitment also varies by the person holding the office. And there is the saying, you get out of it what you put into it. That definitely applies here. The public has elected you to do a job. You are obligated to dedicate the time necessary and make the necessary sacrifices to do that job. If you do not want to commit the time or the sacrifices necessary, do not run for office. The county commission normally interacts with department heads and upper management only. There is a county employee committee that gives the line staff an opportunity to voice employee concerns and to be involved in the process. The county commission interacts with line staff through this committee only. The county commission also has the authority to set overall county policies. The county auditor oversees the overall implementation of the policies within the everyday workings of county government. County policies are developed with the proper input of the auditor and the affected department heads. Basically, the county government sets policies. It is up to the auditor and the other department heads to fulfill those policies. County government is also different than other forms of local government. We have other elected department heads, such as the sheriff, the auditor, and the treasurer. Those independently elected department heads are allowed to set policy within their own offices. County commissioners must give the other elected office holders and department heads the authority to fulfill their policies. A county commissioner who overly involves himself in the everyday workings of these offices is going to eventually appear to be authoritative and, you know, what was the best word you said? Authoritative and demanding. There is a lot of time spent on public interaction. Public interaction is one of the most important aspects of public service. You must be prepared to spend the time necessary to visit with those who elected you. A county commissioner must know what the public needs and demands, and the only way to know this is to make yourself available to communication. A county commissioner must also be able to answer the telephone calls, the emails, and make the necessary appearances of the office. There is no such thing as public or negative public interaction. The most important person to talk to on any issue is the person you're talking to at the time. Some of them might be saying it very loud or very forcefully. Others will be very calm. The thing to remember is you need to know how that particular issue affects that person and how it will affect your duties. So how it affects them is the most important thing to be listening to at the time. One of the most rewarding aspects of an elected office is the public service. It's a challenge to find solutions to the various problems. I've enjoyed working with other elected officials. Those have been some of the most rewarding aspects of this position. The biggest challenges I have faced since being elected is trying to find those various solutions. It's also to find resources. There is no manual, there is no rules, especially on how to judge or work once you become a county commissioner. The only thing you would have is a basic understanding of state law. One of the things I would recommend to anybody seeking this office is to study state law very closely so that you know exactly what you need to do. One of the other biggest challenges or lessons learned would be is finding information and resources. I have contacted other city office holders, other county commissioners from clear across the state. How is their jurisdiction handling a certain problem? What information or advice would they have to make things more successful in Morton County? Always keep your door open to that interaction with other elected people and other people who have been there. There's really no time-proven election techniques. The time commitments and cost will depend on the individual running the office. Basically, the amount of time you spend campaigning is also a reflection about how much time you're willing to dedicate to the office. The more time campaigning, the more self-sacrifices you'll be willing to make to be successful in your position. As far as general costs, that can depend from election to election. There's a lot of costs associated with signs. There can be costs associated with TV, radio ads, billboards, and the such. I would recommend staying with your lawn signs, street signs, things that are a little bit less expensive. But the main thing would be, my biggest recommendation is don't go into debt just solely for your campaign. Advice for a future commission or board member? Well, public service is a privilege. Serving an elected office is always enjoyable and challenging. Be prepared to work for the people you serve. Always be honest. Always be approachable. And always do what is right and honorable. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andy. I'm going to turn it back to Lori here in just a minute. One of the questions that, of course, everyone has when they're thinking about running for office are the requirements as far as what is required for filing, all of those sorts of things. And I'm going to let Lori talk about that. But first, I do want to say just a quick thank you. Ellen Huber is here tonight. She's the Business Development Director, has been the liaison to the Leadership Pride Image Committee and has really helped keep that one going. Wilfred Valesky is here, who is the superintendent of the school district. He's been working with our education committee. Cole is here, as I think has been mentioned, with the Parks and Rec Department. He's been working with our Quality Places committee. And also Jim Neubauer is here, who's the city administrator for Mandan. So thank all of you for all you do here in the city of Mandan. Next, I'm going to turn to Lori and let her talk a bit about candidacy filing requirements.
Okay, thank you very much. Nothing too difficult to seek candidacy. The information and required forms for seeking candidacy in the June 12th offices can be found on the North Dakota Secretary of State's website, www.northdakota, or I should say it this way, www.nd.gov/SOS. The forms may also be obtained from City Hall, from Morton County, and from school administration offices. Tonight we have candidacy informational packets here with us that have all the required forms that you need. And so those of you in our audience are welcome to those packets. One of the forms, the petition certificate of nomination form, is where collected qualified voters place their signatures. And those signatures are required for city, park, and county seats, but not for school board seats. As far as how many signatures you need to gather, city and park offices may collect signatures of 10% of the electors who voted for that office in the last city election. However, no more than 300 signatures are required. Candidates for the county offices may collect signatures of not less than 2% or more than 5% of the votes cast for the same office in the last general election. However, again, no more than 300 signatures are required. As a rule of thumb, it is always recommended that individuals gather 300 signatures of qualified voters to allow for those that may be found invalid. City, park, county, and school candidates are all required to complete a statement of interest form, which requires signature before a notary. In addition, county commission candidates must file an affidavit of candidacy form. City Commission, Municipal Judge, and Park Board candidacy forms must be filed by 4 p.m. on April 13th at the City Administration Office. The only form required for school board candidacy, that statement of interest form, is due by 4 p.m. on April 13th at the Brave Center School Administration Office. Candidates for statewide, district, county, and city offices must also file campaign contribution reports, and information on that aspect can be found on the North Dakota Secretary of State's website. Before I turn it back over to you, Calvin, since you've been so good at mentioning the Mandan Tomorrow committees, I'm just going to take a moment to tell our audience and our viewers that those 4 committees, we're always looking for more volunteer members to participate on those committees. And so they can contact the Bismarck Mandan Chamber, in particular talk to Susie, right? So if you're interested, the 4 committees are Quality Places and Destinations, Leadership, Pride, and Image, Economic Opportunity and Prosperity, and Education and Workforce.
Okay, thank you very much, Lori. Just before we take some questions from the audience, if there are any, I do want to mention that Don Rohr is here, who is the county auditor. Also, I see Bruce Strinden is here from the county commission, and Dennis Rohr and Dot Frank are in the back row, I see, this evening. So thank you to all for, thanks to all of you for being here. And I'm sure that if folks have questions about running for office, any of these elected officials would be very happy to talk with you. So please do not hesitate to call them. We're at that part of the presentation where if there are some questions from the audience, we would be happy to take those. If there aren't any questions, then we'll be ending the TV portion of the event and then going into some roundtable discussions. So any questions from the audience that anybody would like to ask? Okay, thank you very much. We will end the telecast. Thanks to all of you for being here, for giving us your time and insight, and also thanks to all of you at home that watched tonight. Good evening.